Oh. Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking here. Gonna do a little bit more of a laid-back style kind of video today. I am wearing my Gryffindor shirt. It's an R, not an A, but it looks like an A, so if you want to say it's an A, it's an R, but really it's an A, but an R. Yeah. Anyway, so a couple weeks back, I made that D&D video. Something new, something different I just wanted to throw out there on the channel, and just talking about a campaign that I was part of. I had a lot of fun. I wanted to share the experience with you guys, and you know what? For what it was, pretty positive response, honestly. Pretty decent views as well, considering it wasn't a One Piece or a anime or manga related video. Something brand new to the channel, really, and it, you know, for what it was pretty damn good, and also a lot of positive feedback, so I wanted to thank everybody for that right out of the gate. And some questions. People were asking me, hey, you should do more D&D content on the channel, and I'm like, okay, sure, I can do that. Now, keep in mind, I haven't been playing the game for very long. You know, I've only been playing in this, like, the actual game for like 5 months or so. And I was about a year now, since like last November, since I've been reading and, you know, learning about the game and the rules and all that stuff. So I can't really sit here and be like, all right, everyone, this is Dungeon Master Tekking here. I've been playing this game for 5 months. Let me lay down all the secrets. You know, I know every facet of this game inside and out. All the stuff you can just ask me. I know it all. So I can't really do that. But something I can do, and people ask me to do, is like talk about how you got into the game, and that might help other people out, because this is something that I'm sure I'm not alone here. Something I'm sure is an issue with a lot of people is you're interested in D&D, and you don't really know where to go from there. You know, I was interested in this game for years, quite literally years. I was aware of its existence, you know, early on, because I think there was references to it in, like, cartoons growing up. Like, there was that one episode of SpongeBob where it's like, "Art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" And I don't know if that was, like, my first, you know, reveal of D&D. No! You know what it was? I think it was an episode of Dexter's Laboratory. I think that's what it was, because I think there was an episode where Dexter was having a little D&D group, and I think that was the first experience I had to it. So, in that sense, I knew it existed. But I didn't know anybody that played the game. Even throughout high school, nobody really played it. I think my school did have like a board game club, but I wasn't part of any club in high school really, and I don't even think it was that kind of board game. Like, it wasn't like, it was like actual board games and like Monopoly and stuff. I don't think it was actual like D&D, right? So what happened though, the thing that really got me super interested in it was a video series by a guy named Noah Antwiler. And I've mentioned him before. He was the spoony one on That Guy with the Glasses back in the day, and he doesn't really do videos anymore, and there was some issues with him, but he was an integral part of me getting interested in this game, and he made some pretty damn good videos back in the day. And so I think it was around community college, like 2012, 2013, when I was in college, he started putting out this series called Counter Monkey, and he has played the game for years and years and years, so he knew a lot more about it, and he was just telling stories about his adventures, and at first I didn't really feel them, because it's like, maybe not for me, but that guy had such a gift for just telling really good stories and the flow of his videos and everything, so I would definitely recommend them for a watch. I even think he did do a video kind of like this where he talked about how to get into Dungeons and Dragons, right? So I watched his videos, you know, when they came out, and I've rewatched them many times since then, that whole Counter Monkey series. He unfortunately doesn't do it anymore. He doesn't really make videos anymore, really, but that was a really good thing for me to get interested in. I'm like, okay, I got interest in the game going, and I have some basics in like the terminology of the game, you know, like the different skills, like charisma, dexterity, terms like AC and initiative. It's like, okay, learning it just through like osmosis, I guess. From that, I picked up a few things, okay, but it was still years. I mean, still years go by. When I was in proper university, after community college, I graduated that, went to actual university a year later. There was a club that did do tabletop Dungeons and Dragons. They did, you know, that kind of stuff. And there was a girl that I think was the president or the vice president of the club that wanted me to, like, hey, Matt, you should come and game with us. And I'm like, yeah, sure, when is it? And she's like, oh, we get together, you know, Sunday afternoons. And every single Sunday afternoon, I always had work at flippin' Dollar Tree back when I was working there, and I could never make a game session. But I'm like, damn it. I should have, thinking back, I should have at least, my boss was pretty cool at Dollar Tree. I could have definitely gotten away with being like, hey, Jess, can I take next Sunday off? I want to do this thing at the college. She probably would have said yes. I don't know why I didn't do that. That's one of the many regrets of my life, okay? But finally, okay, so I graduate college, right? And then last year around November, I'm at Barnes & Noble. I'm seeing all this D&D crap, and it's just like, because I'm up there all the time. I'm shopping for manga or books on mythology or history or whatever the hell I read, and I'm up there, and every time I'm up there, I do the same exact thing. Like, man, it'd be really cool to be into D&D. Oh, well, guess I'm not, and I just walk away. That one particular day, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I am learning. I don't even have a group to play with. I only really have one friend, my friend Phil, that's really into this. And two people do not a game make, but it's like, you know what? I'll figure that out later. I'll figure out, the group to play with later. I need to at least learn the rules of this game and how it actually works, before I even find a group. That way, when I find a group, I don't have to, cram all this stuff into my head right away. I know it right out of the gate. Okay, cool. So, I would recommend... This stuff can get pretty expensive, okay? Especially if you're buying it from retail price. I would highly recommend you don't do that. Most of this stuff I actually bought online over Amazon. Like these books alone, like Player's Handbook, something rather integral to have. You should at least own one copy of the Player's Handbook, really. This retail price is $50. $50 for this. And I bought it in a box set with the DMG, the Dungeon Master Guide, and the Monster Manual. I have crap falling around all over the place, so got all three of these, plus the shield, and I think if you get this retail price, it's like $150. I bought it for, I think, slightly less than 100, or maybe around 100 with shipping on Amazon, okay? But, you don't even really necessarily need all three of these books. You can learn most of this stuff, honestly, just online. So, I like owning physical copies of stuff. I like having a big stack of D&D books in my corner, but that's just me. But something I would recommend you buy, because it's the first thing I purchased. Actually, there was two things I purchased that night when I was at Barnes & Noble about a year ago. The first thing was a D&D starter set for $20, all right? I thought that was a pretty fair price, considering it was Barnes & Noble, and it was like some of this stuff might kind of overpriced. But this, $20, I thought pretty fair, and this gives you basically a crash course in D&D and all the essentials that you're going to need. Basically what it contains is a stripped down version of these three books. Obviously, it doesn't cram everything in these three books in here, but it gives you the essentials, okay? Now, I also bought a deck of spell cards that were like, how much were these? Like $23, but that's not, once again, I just like having cards and like all this paraphernalia and stuff. I just like having that kind of crap. So you don't need that, but I would recommend the starter set, okay? So in the starter set, you got a few things. More cards. You got these two things right here. This starter set rulebook, which, as I said, pretty much contains little snippets of all three of these. Snippets from the Player's Handbook, snippets from the DMG, and a little bit about some monsters. That's actually included more in here, and it gives you a starter adventure, the Lost Mines of Phandelver, which I hear is actually a really decent adventure. It's not like a really lame sort of like, okay, well, it's baby's first D&D, we're gonna walk you through this now. No, from what I've heard, this is actually a pretty solid adventure. I've never run it myself, but I've read through it. It's pretty good for what it is, considering you get it in just the starter set. It immerses you in the world quite well. And also, just to kind of extend it a little bit even more, it gives you some starter character sheets. And, really basic ones kind of already filled out, like, just generic wizard, generic cleric. So for a group of people that have never really played D&D before, but were just really interested in it, this would definitely work. Now, when I eventually found my group, luckily everybody was interested in D&D, and our DM, Frank, really cool dude. He's got long hair, if you ever meet Frank. Really long hair. Cool dude, though. And he was a veteran, though. He had been DMing many games for years, so he knew how this crap worked. And there was my other friend, Rob, who, he wasn't really into it at first. Like, he was interested in the game, but as soon as, we started talking about gaming, he soaked all this stuff up like a sponge. Like, he was, reading all the information. I lent him my Player's Handbook, and, a week later, he was a pro, man. He knew all the stuff worked, right? So, by the time we started gaming, we just kind of jumped right in. We didn't do the starter adventure or anything, but if you want to know how I learned the basic rules of the game, how you fill out a character sheet, how AC works, an armor class, and what does that do? Things like initiative, things like what a saving throw is, things like all this terminology you've probably heard over the years, especially since now, from what I've been seeing, Dungeons and Dragons is more popular than ever, especially on YouTube and social media. There's plenty of people now that are doing series on just, retelling adventures or live streaming their campaigns or doing animations of Dungeons and Dragons. Matt Mercer, who is the voice of Trafalgar D. Law in One Piece in the English dub, is Critical Role. He does that whole thing where he was, and one of my friends that's DMing this big campaign we're doing, she was watching him this past week and learning all this stuff from Matt Mercer, and I've seen plenty of stuff that he's done. So I didn't learn the basic rules from him. I really should have. I chose to read this book instead. But yeah, Matt Mercer, he's pretty cool. You should check out Critical Role, okay? So yeah, I'm here reading this book, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, I've never been like somebody that just soaks up knowledge like that. I'm not like one of the best students in class. I was pretty average, honestly, but just because I was interested in it and I wanted to learn, I picked up the basic rules of this game in like only a couple of days. Like, it was really one of those situations where I was looking through this book and I'm just like, all right, let's get started. And I was thinking it was going to be a really daunting task. It was going to be something that was going to take me, several weeks to figure out and remember all this crap. But honestly, for me, it's just like, maybe it did help that I did see the Counter Monkey series, so I was familiar with a lot of the terminology, as I said. So I'm looking over the skills, and I'm just like, okay, strength, that has acrobatics, that's athletics, and then to dexterity has things like acrobatics, sleight of hand, stealth. I'm like, yeah, okay, that sort of makes sense. I've heard all those terms before, and you can figure out pretty much right away, like, what does stealth do? You should be able to figure out what that is. A lot of this stuff is actually kind of just obvious what it is. It's just kind of piecing it all together, really. It does help to have a DM that has DM'd before. Because when I was reading all about this, I was kind of split from like, okay, how do I want to start this off? If I do find a group to game with, do I want to kick this off with being a DM? Or do I want to kick this off with being a player? And I was really split because I was like, oh man, being a dungeon master seems like a lot of really cool stuff. I would definitely recommend to start off as a player for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just a lot less stressful, to just jump into something you've never DM'd before, and you're with a bunch of people, especially, yeah, if you're DMing and you've never done this before, and your group also has never really done this before, there might be a lot more pressure on you to be like, okay, I'm sort of the person that's supposed to rein all this in and, organize this at least in a decent way that we can have fun and everything, and if, I don't know how to do this, then, it's just gonna fall apart. So, you could just jump in right to it. I mean, that's one of the good things about the game, is just like, don't really stress out about it. It's all about having fun, but, you have this image in your head, like, okay, I want to structure this particular way, and you might just forget some stuff on the fly and things. And by the way, that happens all the time, even at the game that we do, be like, hold on guys, I'm gonna pull some stuff up for a second, or I gotta look up some stuff, and it's okay, and we take a break and whatever. But yeah, so my first group, it was with an experienced DM, and after only a few sessions of doing that, a bunch of newbie players and one veteran DM, I was already starting to figure out, like, the flow of this, like, okay, so this is how that works, this is how this works, and, a couple months ago, I started writing my own adventure, and it's still a lot of stuff to work with, and, I have the kinks out of that yet, and haven't really gotten to the point where I'm ready to do it, but I have, I'm writing it out, and I'm thinking, I think this could seriously work, and I was running it by Frank, and I'm like, here's my basic idea, and he's giving me some hints and some stuff to help out with, and I'm thinking, okay, I think I can do this, right? So, hopefully, in sometime in the next few months, maybe I'll start my own adventure and I'll be the DM for the first time, right? But just from my personal experience with the game, I would definitely go player first, okay, because it's like, okay, I'm a player, and especially if you're with a bunch of other people that are noobs, it's not really that big of a stress on you. It's just like, okay, so we're all new to this, and Frank was aware of that, so he eased us into this thing, it's just like, he's like, all right, let's start with the adventure, let's just go with it, and it took us a while to really get the flow, but we got it, and it was fine. So that was one piece of advice I guess I have for you there. You know, and obviously just because, you know, there's less stuff to keep track of as a player. There's still a lot of stuff to keep track of as a player, but maybe, you know, there's more stuff for DM. So, as for other stuff, other stuff, because there's a lot of other stuff. You want to see how much other stuff there is? There's a lot of other stuff. Other stuff. Okay, so once again, I like to own books, okay? That's kind of my fetish. It's okay. You could be disturbed by that, all right? So, I would recommend, like I said, the starter set. But beyond that, a lot of this stuff you can actually do over your apps or your computer. I go down my friends to, you know, work on character sheets, and my friend Phil, there's an app that does the character sheet stuff for you and just keeps it on your phone. Likewise, Rachel, who's is Phil's fiance, who's going to be the DM for this campaign we're doing with like 7 or 8 people, however many people are going to be on this, she owned a copy of the Monster Manual, and she did everything else on her laptop. Okay, so that's definitely a more cheaper option to work with this, okay, instead of going out and buying all these books and having all the books on standby. If you do want to own the books, like I said, I would recommend definitely a copy of the Player Handbook, and in addition to that, I would recommend a copy of Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is sort of like a supplement to this. So, for example, if you want to be like the other night when we were planning out one of my friend's characters, he wanted to be a Dragonborn Barbarian. So, Barbarian, yeah, you got that in this book here, right here, Barbarian, and all the stuff Barbarians can do. But in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, it kind of gives you some supplements to this stuff. So, in the case with Barbarians, you got things like tattoos that you can add, what's going to be your war totem, things of that nature. Just extra stuff to add some more flavor to your Barbarian, okay? In Xanathar's, there's also a plethora of new spells that are not in the player's manual, like the typical spells you just get at base. Some of which are actually kind of broken, as we found out in the story that I told with the mental prison spell, which I still love that because it's like Rob cast mental prison on this thing, this Nightwalker, this Shadow Walker, or whatever it was called, and we spend like 10 minutes with Frank looking at it, reading the spell, and it's like, damn, that's overpowered, and we're all like, what the hell, it is! So that was pretty funny, right? So yeah, being a player, I would recommend Player's Handbook and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. You could get these physical copies much cheaper over Amazon, but you can also look up a lot of this stuff on the apps, because there's a lot of apps here. There are apps for the Bestiary, which is pretty much just the Monster Manual. There's an app for, these are 5e character, 5e Bestiary, 5e spells, and one of my favorite apps, RPG Generator. I love this because this was very handy when I was writing out my own adventure here. It's just a random thing where it's like, okay, I want to know stuff about random items. So you click on items, and what do I want? Let's say it's a random item in an NPC's pocket. So they pickpocket somebody. It's just like, oh, what's going to be in his pocket? Because you never know what players are going to do. Okay, well, roll a D100. Say it lands on 62. A closed thimble filled with cabbage soup. All right, so that's something, right? Very handy little tchotchkes and extras to have, okay? And these are, of course, free. So, yeah. Now, going beyond just to talk about... Oh, dice. Let's talk about dice. Dice are important. All right. Here's a thought that I had at the beginning of this, okay? And it's not necessarily wrong, but it just shows how much of a newbie I was at this game. In the starter set that you get, you also get a set of dice. I took them out of here. They're actually located in here, but you get the standard dice. You get yourself a D20, a D12, a D8, a D4, a D10, a D6, what you get, right? And I thought, oh man, they give you 6 dice in here. That should be enough, right? 6 die, that's all you need. More dice are fun dice. Having more dice. First off, it's just nice to have a really big sack of dice. You do not know the feeling that you get when you walk down the street with a big bag of dice hanging to your side. But no, seriously. Seriously, though, having a lot of dice is cool because there's a lot of stuff in this game that require you to roll a lot more than just one type of dice. Case in point, that disintegrate spell that I casted on that little kid. It wasn't a little kid, he was a demon, little ghost kid or whatever. But that disintegrate spell I casted, it's like 10d6s. It's like an insane number. Now, going back to the phone, there are once again apps for that. You know, there's an app for that. Just like roll 10d6s, and you just push a button and it just says 79, and it's like, okay, 79 points of damage, take it away. Now you could do it that way, and that's fine, perfectly acceptable, but I prefer the physical way, you know? It's like, alright, so let's d6, 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 6. This is actually real time what happens at the table, by the way. I think that's 7, 8, 9. Do I only have 9 d6s? That would, oh, okay, 10. Boom. All right. Ah. Yeah, that is a number. That is a number, I can tell you right now. I'm not sure what number, but that is a number. And then everybody at the table is just like, okay, it's like 2, 6, 6, 2, 2, 5, 9, 5. Okay, all right, you did this much damage. All right, so yeah, having more dice is definitely fun. There is a big bag of dice you can get your hands on that's kind of like a mass-produced thing, and it's about like the size of this. This is actually a Crown Royal, you know, bag here. That makes a very handy dice bag. It looks like a fancy one, which is I love it. But yeah, there's like a generic giant bag of dice you can grab, and I think it's for like $30, which you might think is rather expensive for just dice, and you know, kinda. But it's like filled to the brim with die, and you're good to go, right? Yeah, every time I go to the store, if I see new shiny dice, this is gonna open up a whole new thing for you though, where you go to the store and you're like, oh, those die look pretty cool. Those dice look pretty cool, and you can never have enough dice. And of course, you got your die that are like, all right, this is my lucky die. In fact, I have mine right here, honestly. My lucky dice. My red and black lucky dice, which was actually, I believe, given to me by one of my fans. But every time I've rolled this, it's always come up good. So you don't use this all the time because that would cheapen the luck a little bit, right? You got to use this only in really, really critical situations when it's holy crap, you're almost close to death and somebody's about to swing and you got to roll for your saving throw and it's like, what? Of course. Of course. That's great. That is fantastic. Oh, man. That's what I get for rolling this. It's like, no, Matt, you roll this when you need to roll this. You do not roll this when you're not even playing the game right now, Tekking. Oh, man, that's not good. That's not good. That is an omen. That's actually really scary because I always roll really good whenever I do bust that one out. Oh, man. Oh. I might get into like a car accident tomorrow or something now. I'm just gonna stay inside for the foreseeable future, okay? Okay. But yeah, dice are fun. It's nice to have die. Some other books I have over here. Now, because I'm interested in being a DM and I'm learning a lot about that stuff, I think there's a lot more books for DMs rather than players. For the players, you mostly just got the Player's Handbook and Xanathar's there for that one. But for DMs, you of course have the Monster Manual to learn all about the big baddies of the world. You got the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide there. And then you got some extra stuff. We got Volo's Guide to Monsters, which I use quite regularly. And you got Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes. And this is Curse of Strahd. I've heard about Curse of Strahd from the Counter Monkey series that Spoonie did. He talked about it once in a video about Strahd von Zarovich and what his whole history and everything. Yeah, so I was really interested in the whole idea just because, like, oh, it's a dark, mysterious land. It's the Shadowfell. It's Barovia, you know, this land of darkness. And it's got this creepy vampire castle, and there's a creepy vampire that lives in the castle. So I picked this up pretty early on. It's just like, I was kind of getting ahead of myself, honestly. I didn't even have a group to play with yet, and I already bought this book. So someday, this wouldn't be like my first, you know, game I would DM, but I would love to DM a good game of Curse of Strahd. It might take a while, but yeah. And yet I don't own a Taraka deck. Taraka. I don't own the deck yet, but they do sell it, so I will probably get my hands on that relatively soon. But yeah, so this is obviously something you don't need to get. That's just my thing. So yeah, beyond that, Cards. If you want to play a spellcaster, which I almost always go spellcaster. Typically I play a sorcerer because that's what I started off. That's my main guy. I've played wizard before. I feel like I would probably go through all of the spellcasting classes before I would delve into something else major. But there's a lot of spellcasting classes in D&D, and I think that's the last thing I'm going to talk about here before I get going, really. You know, just as an introduction, something I was really surprised at is, you know, it's not just wizards that know magic. You know, there's wizards, there's sorcerers, there's warlocks, sure. But then you also have, you know, clerics, they can cast spells. You have rangers, and even rogues can cast spells as well. In a limited form, not as many as, you know, the wizard pool is or the sorcerer pool is. But, you know, if you want to play a spellcaster in this game, that doesn't preclude you to just being the frail wizard holding a staff and just being like, how you guys doing today? I got my 6 hit points here at level 1. No, if you want to be a ranger, if you want to be a thief or a rogue and you want to actually use knives and you want to get into battle that way, you can do that, and you can also still learn spells. The character I was helping out with the other day just wanted to go straight barbarian, so they're like, all right, well, make you a barbarian, John, we'll get yourself a great axe, everything will be fine, you know? So yeah, think about what kind of character you would like to play, but honestly, I think most stuff is covered. I mostly go, you know, strictly spellcaster. Very rarely will I ever get into melee combat with anything. I do carry a light crossbow with me that I think I've used exactly once. I fired 1 bolt and it missed, and I'm like, I'm gonna go back to casting magic missile and firebolt from here on out, you know, and instead of, you know, wasting, why do I even carry this thing, honestly, right? But no, if you want to do something like that, if you want, like, hey, I'm interested in bows and crossbows and stuff, but I would also like to cast spell, go ranger. Never been one myself, never known anyone that's been one, but it exists. Druid, also something I've never really had a lot of experience with. Typically in my games, we've used bards a bunch of times, fighters a bunch of times, monk once, paladin and cleric a few times. Nobody in my group has ever played barbarian, or I've been a rogue once. I was a rogue one time in one kind of one-off that we did. We haven't seen any druids. We've had some warlocks. I've been a wizard. But yeah, haven't really have a lot of experience with a few of those classes yet, but who knows? Maybe the next game I do, beyond this one I'm actually playing I'll tell you my backstory of that at the end of this video. I'll end it out with that, but maybe in a following adventure, I'll just pick out a class. Hey, I've never played this class before. Why not? Give it a shot. Something new, right? But yeah, I could go into a few more maybe particular things about it, like actually like rolling for your character and everything, but I think I'll save that for later because I really just wanted to do this like in a way where it's like, hey, I had no idea what was going on with D&D. Here's how I got into it. I don't know if that helped you at all, but if it did, you know, I'm glad. I'm glad it helped you. So yeah, I'll end it out here by just telling you about the character I'm planning for this one. So kind of came up with this last week, and I'm like, all right, so what am I going to do? It's like, well, I think I'm going to stay sorcerer because I know how a sorcerer works, and it's like, hey, this is the one class I've been playing a lot of, so it's like, you know what, I think I'm just going to stick with this because there's going to be a lot of moving parts to this campaign. There's going to be a lot of people involved, so I'm just going to probably stick to what I know instead of keeping track of a bunch of new stuff, okay? So I decided to be a human. I've never played a human before. Starting off the game, I thought, man, humans, that's the most boring of all the races. You got freaking dragons, and you got elves, and dwarves, and gnomes. I really want to play a gnome. I want to play a gnome at some point, okay? But you got tieflings and stuff, and plus all the extra races that exist in Xanathars. You know, you could be a turtle. I want to be a turtle, all right? So, no, there's a bunch of different races. You look at all that, and then you look at human. You look at freaking human here. What is it? And you're thinking, man, humans are like the most boring one, right? Because we're humans. Well, it turns out humans are actually not that bad, considering just being a human automatically gives you a +1 to every ability score you have. Typically, whatever race you pick, you'd only get like a plus to certain characteristics. Like, for example, the Dragonborn character gets a dragon. He's a humanoid dragon character, so he automatically gets a +2 to strength. And a +1 to charisma, I believe, but immediately a +2 to strength because he's a dragon. He's a strong dragon. So you don't get that for every single stat, though, usually, except if you're human. So I decided to go human, and I'm a sorcerer, and my background is this. This is what I decided to go with, okay? I'm like, all right. So you have to pick a way that you got access to your sorcerer powers, right? Like usually it's like, oh man, I fell into a stream of raw, wild magic, and that's how I got access to these powers, right? You don't get them from book learning, you get them from like some other means, right? So I'm like, all right, my character, named Dirk Dundragon, was born to basically an evil cult that were treating him as like the reincarnation of a devil and be like, oh, he is born, he will bring about the end of days, all right? And I lived most of my life in this cult, and most of my life growing up was pretty okay because I was basically being waited on hand and foot by these people, you know, giving me all the food and toys that I could ever ask for because I'm essentially like their bringer of death, you know, their Christ figure, or Antichrist figure in this case, right? And I'm being raised in that end, and I'm a little kid, so I don't know. So I grow up, and then by the time I'm 13, they're like, all right, now the time begins. You are 13 and the prophecy states that you must, you know, begin using your powers to take over the world and have us reign for 1,000 years or some bullshit. And I decided at age 13, yeah, I'm not doing that. And I left home and never looked back and went to go be a pastry chef. So I work at I'm a guild artisan, and I'm there, and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to grow and just learn I've been really interested in cooking, so I'm going to learn how to cook and be a pastry chef mostly, and yeah, that's what my character is by the time that this story is gonna begin. So yeah, I'm gonna walk around with a set of chef's tools on me, and I have my mighty whisk of damnation that I can lay down on you. Now I still know how to use my sorcerer crap because I was raised in this environment, but I'm also just a really damn good pastry chef. Okay, so yeah. That's the fun of this game. You get to come up with so many things. It's the limits of your imagination. So anyway, until next time, I guess, Tekking signing out. Later, everybody.